Nonsense of mainstream outlets pumped out. Deception is being used to manipulate people, whether for gain or the success of some movement or another. Apparently it works. People make fortunes, cases have been stoked, riots started, cities burned and looted. We've seen it, and we've seen the mainstream media in active participation. May God help us not to react emotionally or immediately to every whiff of information. We should have learned by now that the goal is control of population and the achievement of ends, whatever means are required. There are more lessons to be learned and more scams to avoid. Thank God we still have some liberties that allow us freedom of movement, freedom of association, and freedom of thought. Most of the world doesn't. That's Mark Armstrong. P.S. This morning, several of us drove to Hawkins, Texas for the funeral of longtime member and friend, Mr. Leon Cunningham. We hadn't realized that he was a decorated serviceman for the Korean War era. We did know that he was a retired engineer for IBM and that for many years he set up sound system and recording gear for the church. Many times we joked and kidded him that he never saw a router or a splitter box that he didn't just love. Stan conducted the funeral service, and it was good to see and spend time with the family on this sad but not sorrowful occasion. Leon was 89, almost 90.
And now for this sermonette and announcement, Mr. Jerry Linder.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you, Kelly, Kathy. Glad y'all made it down safe and everything. On the prayer list, Nancy Armstrong. Remember her, and of course Miss Holt. I haven't heard from her, but she had a lot of problems with her foot, and we hope she's getting better. On the announcements, the little announcements is kind of up in the air right now, but I'll give you within a little window what might be going on and what might not be going on. Of course, the last day of unleavened bread, we'll dismiss here and head to Dalton, be with their brothers down there and support them. On the first day of unleavened bread, of course, Nashville Church is going to be joining us up here. Or Clarksville, I guess now. And right now, it's either going to be Kelly or Wayne is going to be joining us. We're in discussion over that, but one of the two will be here. And of course, maybe Kelly will join us for Passover, we hope. But that's all the announcements. You got anything, Kelly, you want to add to that?
Yes. You've got special music.
Well, I have. Wait a minute, no. Thanks. That's all I have. Of course, yes, Passover will be here in the same place. Turn to Genesis, the first chapter and the first verse. Everybody's read this over and over again. Of course, everybody repeat it by memory. It says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void. And darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light. And there was light. If you think about this huge universe that's up above us, and I don't think it ever really comes to mind how vast and huge this universe is, or what a little pinhead that the earth is. That God reached down with His Holy Spirit and made this earth. And we know in the church, studying for years and years, that the earth actually was a prior creation. That through Satan and his demons destroyed the earth, and it was a recreation process. But as you think about this little earth that we're living on, and I think about myself, somebody say, well, where are you from? And I thought about that too. My name is Jerry Linder. I'm from the planet Earth. My address is the United States of America. The state of Tennessee, the city of Baxter, which nobody knows and don't even know where it's at because it's small. Nobody knows my name. I'm not recognized for anything. You won't see me on Fox News at night. You won't see me on CNN. You won't read about me in the newspaper. Anybody in my town you can ask me about, when I was growing up, all those people have more or less left. You go to Baxter at the local store down there and says, you know where Jerry Linder lives? Jerry who? That's the place we're living in now. When I was growing up, everybody knowed everybody. I mean, you know, if a neighbor 5 miles down the road had problems, we'd all get together and see what we could do to help them. I used to belong to a Pentecostal church years ago when I was much younger. I remember one time that I got sick and the whole church turned out and came to my house and brought stuff to eat and money and stuff like that. But you don't see that no more in the churches or even the people out in the public. You can't leave your doors open no more. When I was a kid, we'd go to bed, leave the windows up, doors open, you go to sleep feeling safe. Nowadays, somebody, a nut will walk in and kill you, just like what happened in Florida the other day. That guy walked in and pulled the fire alarm and killed all those kids in that school down there, which is terrible. It was totally terrible. But you know, I get to thinking about what John saw in Revelation. It must have looked pretty fantastic to him in the time he was living, to see all those jets and bombs and everything going off. And he couldn't explain it except one way, and that's the way he explained it, which it looks like nothing to us because a lot of people cannot understand. If you're in God's church, though, we've been around long enough, we kind of put two and two together, and we know pretty well what's going on living in today to see what the world's made of. But if you rewind back in my time, a boy in the 1960s walking around on the street, you know, and I was moved forward in my time till today and was asked to describe what's going on today, I would be like John trying to describe what was going on in our day. Because when I was a kid, you mentioned iPhone, I'd be like the Three Stooges. I'd put it up my eye and say, hello, hello. Because, you know, an iPhone, you just don't, it was unheard of. Got some of the things, the computers and these video games, you got to be kidding. I mean, when I was growing up, the biggest thrill we had was a baseball bat, and you couldn't afford a ball, you'd have to hit a rock. That's all we had, you know, so back then. But how time has progressed. And speaking of my name not being mentioned, you know, like nobody knows my name around Baxter or nothing like that, and that's probably a good thing a lot of times because, you know, there's so much evil going on in the world that you see it happening everywhere. But, you know, I think a lot about the eternal God and what He's going to do for each and every one of us. The only one place I want my name to be mentioned is in the Lamb's Book of Life. Now that is one of the greatest things you can have. I don't care when Christ comes back and everybody's going to be judged and you've got presidents, you've got kings, you've got Elvis Presley walking up there. And by the way, you know, these kids holler around anymore this day and time. Everything is cool, man. Everything is cool. But they failed to mention, you know where the word cool came from? 1933, a black jazz guy that played the guitar come up with a song called Cool. It went over into the 50s, and you remember what happened in the 50s. It lasted a while, and then, of course, it disappeared. And now, this day and time, you can't meet a young person out on the street, hey, man, that's cool. I mean, they don't realize that's a thing of the past. It's like Solomon said, you know, nothing's really new. But we live in that generation, every one of us, and I'm glad that one day that, you know, that Jesus Christ can look at me and say, Jerry, I want you to go over here at such and such place and teach these people the truth of God. Teach them about the 10 Commandments. And you know what? That'll be the greatest time of my life, and I would want my name to be mentioned at that time. Thank you.
would please stand, take your helmet, turn to page 45. I am thine, O Lord. I am thine, O Lord, I have heard thy voice, and it told thy love to me. But I long to rise in the arms of faith, and be closer drawn to thee. Draw me nearer, nearer, precious Lord, to the way that thou hast shown. Draw me nearer, 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 blessed Lord, to thy ever-ruling throne. Consecrate me now to thy service, Lord, by the power of grace divine. Let my soul look up with a steadfast hope, and my will be lost in thine. Draw me nearer, nearer, blessed Lord, to the way that thou hast shown. Draw me nearer, nearer, blessed Lord, to thy ever-ruling throne. Oh, the pure delight of a single eye, that before thy throne I spend. When I kneel and pray, earnestly I commune as friend with friend. Draw me nearer, nearer, blessed Lord, to the way that thou hast shown. Draw me nearer, 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 blessed Lord, to the ever-ruling throne. There are depths of love that I cannot know till I have immortality. There are heights of joy that I may not reach till I rest in peace with thee. Draw me nearer, 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 blessed Lord, to the way that thou hast shown. Draw me nearer, 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 blessed Lord, to the ever-living throne. And now for the sermon. Mr. Kelly Pierce. He got me a little confused calling on that.
Hey, Jerry at work, be complete confused Robert. Oh, well, good afternoon. It is good to see all of you again. Now, I've told you before that I have an iPhone, and Siri is on the iPhone. And I enjoy having conversations with Siri. Keep your thoughts to yourself. But anyway, this is a question that was asked to Siri. It said, Siri, where is the best place to hide a body? Siri's response, the second page of a Google search. Now, from the lack of laughter, the second page of Google search, how many people ever go there? Usually you're on the first page, you don't go past the first page, so you don't ever see what's on the second page. Okay. I knew you would. See, Jerry, this is your fault. I would be communicating much better if I'd had that special music to go along with. This is a letter to tech support. I'm sure all of you at some point in your time has dealt with somebody at tech support. Dear tech support, last year I upgraded from girlfriend 7.0 to wife 1.0. I soon noticed that the new program began unexpected child processing that took up a lot of space and valuable resources. In addition, Wife 1.0 installed herself into all other programs and now monitors all other system activity. Applications such as Poker Night 10.3, Football 5.0, Hunting and Fishing 7.5, and Racing 3.6. I can't seem to keep Wife 1.0 in the background while attempting to run my favorite applications. I'm thinking about going back to Girlfriend 7.0, but the uninstall doesn't work with Wife 1.0. Please help. Thanks, troubled user. Tech support responds, Dear troubled user, this is a very common problem that men complain about. Many people upgrade from Girlfriend 7.0 to Wife 1.0 thinking that it is just a utilities and entertainment program. Wife 1.0 is an operating system and is designed by its creator to run everything. It is almost impossible to delete Wife 1.0 and to return to Girlfriend 7.0. It is impossible to uninstall or purge the program files from the system once installed. You cannot go back to Girlfriend 7.0 because Wife 1.0 is designed to not allow this. Look in your Wife 1.0 manual under Warnings, Alimony, Child Support. I recommend that you keep Wife 1.0 and work on improving the situation. I suggest installing the background application, Yes Dear, to alleviate software augmentation. The best course of action is to enter the command apologize, because ultimately you will have to give the apologize command before the system will return to normal anyway. Wife 1.0 is a great program, but it tends to be very high maintenance. Wife 1.0 comes with several support programs such as Clean and Sweep 3.0, Cook It 1.5, and Do Bills 4.2. However, be very careful how you use these programs. Improper use will cause the system to launch the program Nag 9.5. Once this happens, the only way to improve the performance of Wife 1.0 is to purchase additional software. I recommend Flowers 2.1 and Diamonds 5.0. Warning, do not under any circumstances install Secretary with Short Skirt 3.3. This application is not supported by Wife 1.0 and will cause irreversible damage to the operating system. Best of luck, tech support. Okay. We may have a problem with this sermon because I'm going to be talking about technology today. You know, when we look at our lives today and we compare them with yesteryear, it's easy to think, wow, we are just so much more intelligent than those people. Each generation may not say it, but we are all growing up and we think that we are so much smarter than our parents. There is a time and place in our growing up that we look at our parents and go like, you are so out of it. You are not cool. Because we know so much more as teenagers. We are so smart. We are on the edge of cutting edge technology. I mean, we know how to use the iPhone, the iPad, the iBull, the whatever, and the parents are like, how do you do this? And we have to go to our kids and say, how do you make this work? And they roll their eyes like, oh my gosh, it is so easy. Why do you even try? And they'll try to explain it to us, looking at us the whole time like we're just complete idiots. And so as each generation grows, we think we are smarter than the previous generation. So when you look at our time now and you look back decades and you see the things that people did and the way people interacted with things, you're like, man, we are so much more intelligent than they ever were. I don't know how they survived. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about computers. So if you don't know anything about them, just kind of hang in there until I get past this. Some of you may know exactly what I'm talking about. I have never used these. I have read about them. I have seen pictures of them. I look at them like, I have no idea how you would even use this for what it was meant for. But I guess you could look or make an argument that the very first computer was the abacus. Now the abacus was just some rods with rocks on them that you would slide back and forth and going up and down. And however you slid them, you could do math on them. And there was people who they could slide those rocks, and they could calculate just as fast as you could punch into a calculator. Now to me it's rocks and metal rods. I have no idea. So, but at that time, that was cutting edge technology to be able to use an abacus. Well, later on, and this is what I actually seen, I actually played with one of these, never really learned how to use it other than just barely, but it was a slide rule. A lot of people, especially engineers and things, that's what they did. They used slide rules to make calculations, to design things. They were using slide rules to carry out long mathematical formulas to figure out how to do things. And it was just basically the one I had was a piece of plastic, had a couple of sliding components to it, and another sliding point that would come over, and how you worked all that, you would come and add numbers together, slide this over, and boom, there was your answer. Again, younger generation who had never been exposed to any of this are like, why? Why not just pick up a calculator? And even now it'd be like, calculator, got it on my phone. Why do I need it? Just, there you go, there's your answer. Or you can say, Siri, what's 2 plus 2? And she will say, that is 4, Kelly. I don't need to punch anything. And again, each generation we come up with these things and it's like, wow, this is amazing, this is great. And the generations to come look back and go, wow, they were like rubbing 2 sticks together to make fire. Because we just look at it like it's, you know, they could do nothing. Well, then we get into the modern era, as they say. In 1622, or excuse me, the first computer resembling today's modern machines was the analytical engine, a device conceived and designed by British mathematician Charles Babbage between 1833 and 1871. That was the first mechanical computer, as they called it. And it was a bunch of gears and make the awfulest noise. And I seen one picture of it that you would flip some levers and you go down to the end of it. And if you ever seen like the old timey cars, you had to stand in front and turn the crank. You had to stand in front of this machine and you had to turn this crank and everything would drop and slide and move. And all of a sudden you get a printout over here of what the answer was. And that was the first computer. Then ENIAC came along, E-N-I-A-C, which stood for Electronic Numerical Integrator and Computer. It was amongst the earliest electronic general purpose computers made. It was Turing complete. Turing complete basically just means it had an operating system. It took me a while to even figure that one out. You look up Turing complete, you're going to get a big long definition that I didn't understand the half of. And this is ancient, you know, technology now. It was Turing complete, digital, and able to solve a large class of numerical problems through reprogramming. Although ENIAC was designed and primarily used to calculate artillery firing tables for the United States Army's Ballistic Research Laboratory, its first programs include a study of the feasibility of the thermonuclear weapon. ENIAC was formally dedicated at the University of Pennsylvania on February the 5th, 1946, and was heralded as a giant brain by the press. It had a speed on the order of 1,000 times faster than that of electromechanical machines. This computational power, coupled with the general purpose programmability, excited scientists and industrialists alike. This combination of speed and programmability allowed for thousands more calculations for problems, as ENIAC calculated a trajectory, and this I did not know, and so it like shocked me, but could calculate a trajectory that normally took a human 20 hours to calculate in 30 seconds. So human beings were calculating ballistic trajectories and it would take them 20 hours to calculate that trajectory. Now me, because of modern age and computers and all, I'm like, how is that even possible to think that I would be with pencil and paper and a slide rule or whatever, spending 20 hours calculating trajectories? But yet people did it until these computers came along, and then they could do it in 30 seconds. If you had been spending 20 hours of your life doing something, and now all of a sudden you had 19 hours, 59 minutes, and 30 seconds of your life back, what would you do? That's a big chunk of a day that you gain back because of a computer. So that's the thing about computers. Computers are supposed to help us. They're supposed to help us do our work. Now, you've got people who are against computers or against modernization. How they like, you're taking away the art, you're taking away the craft of people because machines are doing it. People are losing their jobs because a computer can do it, and a computer can do it safer and faster than a human being can. I'm sure you remember the song of John Henry, Racing the Steam Engine. That was modern technology being applied, and the men were like, hey, and John Henry, of course, he ended up beating the machine. Cost him his life, but he beat the machine. But that's the way we think of machines. Machines are here to help us. Even a simple USB stick, I'm sure you're familiar with those now, or a Wi-Fi router is more powerful, let alone what an iPhone can do, than that first computer. The first computers would fill a room. What most people carry in their pockets now is more powerful than a machine that would fill this room. And we all carry them around in our pockets. Man, are we smart or what? Is it not amazing to look back and see where we're at now and go, wow, is there anything else we can come up with? I mean, just to think about what's happened in the last 50 years in technology. Imagine what will happen in the next 50 years. What are we going to see? I may be coming to Cookeville and be getting here in like 30 minutes. Because I'll hop in my car, I'll flip a switch, and I'll be up in the air, and I'll be taking off and flying down here, and I'll land right here in the parking lot. If I could do that, if I could spend 30 minutes getting down here, that's 2.5 hours of my life I get back. That's 2.5 hours longer I can hang around because I don't have to worry about getting back so much. So you'd get more time with me. So that improves your life right off, doesn't it? But just think about where we might be because we are so intelligent. An iPhone can process instructions at a rate of approximately 1.2 instructions every cycle in each of its 2 cores. That's 3.36 billion instructions per second that an iPhone can process. Put simply, an iPhone 6's clock is 32,600 times faster than the best Apollo-era computers and can perform instructions 120 million times faster. Your phone will do more than NASA's greatest computer that they used to send men to the moon and back. It wouldn't be wrong in saying an iPhone could be used to guide 120 million Apollo-era spacecraft to the moon all at the same time. The computing power that you have in your pockets could guide 120 million manned rockets to the moon at the same time. Now, if that doesn't blow your mind, I don't know what will. Because to think about that, it's just amazing. Me growing up, I grew up with Star Trek. Also Star Wars. Now, some of you may be into it, some of you may not. Some of you have not seen Star Wars or anything. That's a whole other thing. You know who I'm talking about. But Star Trek was cutting edge in science fiction. When you watch Star Trek and you see Star Trek, you see all the technology that they used. Now, the funny thing about Star Trek is when it first came out, it bombed. It was canceled. It's more popular now than it ever was back when it first came out. But the technology that it introduced has become reality. That is what's amazing with science fiction. You see things in science fiction, and before you know it, you're holding it in your hand. I used to have a flip phone. I'm sure some of you have had those. When you flipped it open, do you remember Star Trek? Do you remember Captain Kirk? Scotty, beam us up. I remember having my flip phone and flipping it open one day going, this This is it. This is the communicator. It was on Star Trek. I'm doing the same thing I watched on TV. I'm flipping this open and I'm calling somebody. This is awesome. It became real. So when I started preparing for this sermon, I decided just for the fun of it, I was going to look into Star Trek technology. Because I wanted to know what else was out there. Because, I mean, some of the stuff is really, you know, you look at it and you're like, it's far-fetched. You know, come on, we're never going to do that. That's just pure science fiction. Ain't going to happen. Again, as I was preparing the sermon and started looking at things, I was amazed at how smart we are and how much knowledge that we have. Do you remember the replicators on the newer Star Trek? Captain Picard would go to the replicator and say, you know, tea, Earl Grey, hot. And you'd hear a little whoop, and he'd reach in and pull out a teacup and have his tea. You ready for this? Today's 3D printers do not tackle tea, but there are machines that actually can print food. The Foodini, as it's called, isn't too different from a regular 3D printer, but instead of printing with plastic, it deploys edible ingredients squeezed out of stainless steel capsules, and other printers like the MarkerBot Replicator 2 are quite adept at making small objects. So what we once thought was you go to a machine and say, give me a hamburger, we go, that'll never happen. They now have 3D printing technology where you can print things. Now these things still need to be cooked. Most of it, from what I can tell, was like if you don't want to make pasta or ravioli or things like that, that it will print the ravioli pocket and you just stuff it and cook it. But you don't have to roll out the ravioli? Yeah, anymore, because it prints it for you. Now granted, this may not be the exact thing of a replicator, but who would have thought if I told you 10 years ago they're going to have a machine that I can take my computer and I can print out and say, print this. And a printer will print it out. You'd been like, well, you've been smoking, Kelly. You know, marijuana is not legal. Ain't never going to be made legal. But we don't think, we see this as like, you know, I mean, when I seen this, I was like, okay, it's not really a replicator like Star Trek, but that's a step towards it. How soon will we have that they can create food? Either by printing it out, combining it, however. It's how they start. Technology starts and then people improve on it and it expands. In 50 years, will we have replicators where you can walk up and say, tea, Earl Grey, hot? Very possibly. And if I'm around, I'll walk up and say, tea, Earl Grey, hot. Hey, Captain Picard did that. And I'll get all excited, just like I did with the phone. That's just me. Did you ever wonder, in Star Trek, they went to all these planets and everybody understood each other? Well, they had this device that you may not have heard of. It was called the Universal Translator. You see, the Universal Translator was plugged into the ship and into their uniforms and everything so that when you talked, the Universal Translator would translate what you were saying into the language of the person you were talking to and vice versa. So it seemed seamless. There's an app for that. Voice Translator by Teller Apps understands 71 languages. Klingon is not yet available. You speak in your native tongue and the app translates your phrases into another language. So I've got my phone here and I can speak my language and then play it for the person I'm trying to talk to and they will understand it in their language. Kind of tears down the barriers of communication, doesn't it? To where I can pretty much communicate to anybody if I can talk. I'm carrying it in my pocket. Technology in my pocket. We are miniaturizing things. So in my pocket now, but when will it be in a little earbud or something that I can wear in my ear that when I talk, it knows to translate to somebody else what I'm saying? Or you just have it in your ear and when someone's talking to you, whatever goes in comes out English no matter what. And whatever I say is picked up in English and it goes out into all kinds of different languages where I could actually talk to a room full of people that don't understand English but understand several different languages because I have the computing power to translate my words into multiple languages going out to you all in your appliances that you would have in your ear. science fiction. Right now, is it that far off? Probably not. Think about it. Think about all these people that you have who people talk, like at the UN. You know, I've always wondered about this. How do you know the person that's telling you what the other person's saying is telling you the truth? There's a lot of trust there. And considering what goes on at the UN, miscommunication can cause wars. I mean, I'd like to know I could trust the person that's translating for me. What if I didn't have to have a person? What if I had a machine that didn't care about politics or anything else and it would just translate my words? I'll guarantee you it's coming. You know, I'm preaching my sermon today from an iPad. It's a tablet computer. You know, I can have it show me the weather. It can navigate. It can show me to get from point A to point B. I can buy and sell stocks on it. I can control appliances in my home. I can control a heater from the upstairs to the downstairs, turn it on, turn it off. I can turn on light switches. I can control cameras remotely with it. I can research medical conditions with suggestions on how to treat them. And I have access to all the world's information in my hand with this iPad or with my iPhone. Do you not remember seeing on Star Trek walking around with little pads where they were doing everything? Science fiction become true. Man, are we intelligent or what? How many of you remember the tricorder? You know, they'd walk around. If you were Spock, he'd have it there. He'd be telling the captain what life forms and what minerals and all that. Or the medical tricorder where Dr. Bones would come in and he'd wave it over somebody and say, Jim, I'm not a Mason, I'm a doctor. Or whatever the situation might be. They gave us a laugh. But they had the machine that they could just wave over you and it would tell you what's wrong. In 2012, Peter Jansen from McMaster University in Ontario built a working prototype that scans for magnetic fields and other interference. And there is now a medical tricorder that is in trials that can be used to diagnose a patient's medical problems. The tricorder is here. Got some more work to do to reach Star Trek level, but it's here. They can use it to detect your environment. The medical one, they do have appliances that you put on like for your heart to monitor your heart, for blood pressure, other things, and that all feeds back into the device through Bluetooth. I have Bluetooth things. I've got a blood pressure cuff that takes my blood pressure and it records the results into my phone. So I've always got it with me and I can show the doctor this is what my blood pressure's been doing. Same way with my diabetes. When I take blood, I use my phone to take my sugar reading. And it stores it there. And I can take all that and show my doctor what I've been doing through my phone. Because these devices, medical devices, attached to it. So it's using basically devices to monitor me. How long will it be that you will no longer need to go see a doctor because you will go to your computer and you will punch in what's wrong with you and you will have the appliances, things that will take your blood and that will analyze it and give the doctor 5,000 miles away, all your conditions, everything that's going on with you, and you will do a Skype or something with the webcam and sitting at your computer and have the doctor come on there and say, okay, this is what we need to do. And while you're sitting there, listen, take the stethoscope and put it against your heart here, and you'll have an appliance that you'll just put your phone up against your heart, and it will hear your heartbeat, and the doctor will know what it's doing. These are just things that I'm thinking of off the top of my head that we have the ability to do right now to put in place to allow us to do these things. So imagine the people who are spending millions of dollars and it's their job to sit and figure out how to do this as easy as they can. 50 years from now, you'll be staying at home contacting your doctor over the internet. No more sitting in a waiting room. No more going to a doctor's waiting room and catching 15,000 diseases and bugs while you're sitting there waiting to have the splinter taken out of your finger. Because you'll stay at home. We are so smart. The big thing in the next generation of Star Trek was the holodeck. Who would not like to spend some time on the holodeck? Walk into a room and turn it into anything you want to turn it into and live out your imagination. You want to be a PI from the 50s and the 40s? Hey, you can do that. You want to go skiing off Mount Everest? You can do that. And you don't have to worry about dying or anything because it feels like you're really doing it, but the safety's on. You can't die. You want to know what it feels like to jump off the Empire State Building? Go ahead. You'll float to the ground because the safeties will catch you. Nothing bad will happen, but it'll feel like you've flung yourself off the Empire State Building. Guess what? Not quite there yet, but we do have virtual reality goggles where you can enter a virtual world with endless possibilities. You've seen the big glasses that people put on and they walk around. They're in a virtual world. The holodeck, the world is virtual that you're in. This, you're seeing a virtual world. How long before we go from this to a room that is virtual where you can act out things? Do you remember again in the med bay, Dr. McCoy, something's going on, he'd always grab his hypo spray, give the psst. Guess what? Recently, MIT created a similar device that, according to Geek.com, delivers a drug through the skin at speeds of up to 340 meters per second and in under a millisecond. The amount of drug can be varied, as can how deep it is injected. And as far as the patient is concerned, they shouldn't feel anything other than the tip of the injector against their skin. That's because the jet is as thin as a mosquito's propius, which is the thing that mosquito bites you with and sucks your blood out. It's not the first, but it does have more control than other hypo sprays, which means it could actually be a replacement for needles. You're going to walk into your doctor's office, they're going to say, we have to give you a shot, and they're going to pull that out, and they're going to put that up against you, and they're going to go, psst, and you're going to go, oh, Star Trek. Because it will become a reality. Now, this was one, if you were asking me, okay, out of all the things, all kinds of stuff can become, but what's the one thing that will never be in existence? Well, come on, they jumped on the transporter, they went from the space to the ground and like that. Really? Well, guess what? We've already done some teleportation, specifically of photons and atoms. These particles don't disappear and reappear, though. According to Forbes, the information contained in the photon's quantum state is transmitted from one photon to another through quantum entanglement, without actually traveling the intervening distance. An exact copy appears on the other side while the original photon is destroyed. According to theoretical physicist Michio Kaku, we consist of 15 trillion cells, so we'll need to wait a few centuries before we're teleporting like Kirk, and we'll still have to destroy the original. So they're not there yet, but they're transporting photons and atoms. That's matter. Now, what they described here, because this was like talking about Star Trek technology, there's actually another science fiction show. It's called Dark Matters that I've watched. They actually have a device that you get in. It's like a sun tanning bed kind of thing. You get in it, lay down, they close it, and another you materializes in another one of those devices somewhere else in the galaxy. And that one gets out, and it walks around. It's alive, it's thinking, it has your memories, it feels pain, and it can go out and experience things. And then it goes back to its box, and it is destroyed. And everything that it did, all of its memories, all of its feelings, everything that it encountered is transferred back to the original living body, just like if you were there. Now the catch is, if that body dies wherever it's at, then those memories do not come back to you. You're still okay. I mean, nothing happens to you, just that body dies, which is what they were talking about, is that you make a copy here, you send it over here, you have this copy, so you have to destroy the original. I was like, wait a minute, that sounds a whole lot like what I was watching. So again, it's not there yet, but man, are we smart or what? That we can bring these things into realization, into reality. That we can take matter and transport it from one place to another. No, we can't do a human being yet, but how long is it before we are able to do that? Now, I'm guessing probably if you all live long enough to see it, like me, you're probably going to be like Dr. McCoy, and you'll be like, no, I am not getting in there and having my cells tore apart and put back together somewhere else. You just fly me to wherever it is I need to go. Because I don't know how comfortable I'd feel about having all my atoms and things pulled apart and rearranged and sent somewhere and put back together. I like technology, but I'm not that trusting of it. You know, the truth is, we probably do know more than our parents. But is that more intelligent? When was the last time you had to figure out a way to get food on the table without going to a grocery store? When was the last time you had to figure out how to survive a winter? You know, we think about how much intelligence we have, how many things we know, how our lives have improved, how we don't have to worry about things. You want a loaf of bread? Run down to the grocery store and get it. But what happens if the grocery store has no bread? What if the grocery store has no food whatsoever? How smart are you now? Can you survive? You know, when the world collapses and goes into chaos, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to die. Not because somebody kills them, not because they get hurt, because they will not know how to survive. Somebody will say, well, you need to fix dinner. Well, show me where the microwave's at. I don't know. I don't see it. Where's the microwave? We don't have a microwave. Then how are you going to fix dinner if you don't have a microwave? We will not know how to survive because all that stuff has been basically through generations taken out of our memory because we've not had to do it. I worked in the garden a couple of times. I didn't like it. Not a bit. Now my wife, she will grow stuff, and I enjoy eating it. So I'll help her a little bit, especially clean it and get it so I can eat it. But no, my summers, Dad, we would plant a big, huge family garden at his parents' place. And so summer, I was a young man. I'm out to have fun. Go hang out. We would run through the mountains playing army and all kinds of stuff. It's like I said, I don't know how I survived compared to the way things are today. But I did. But I'd get up and I'd be ready to go out and hang out with my friends. They'd go, no, you're not going anywhere till you pick these beans. I'm like, what? He said, you need to pick these beans, break them, put them in the pan, take them into your mom. I'm like, okay. What beans? I'm about to bring them down. Go down there. We had a big shade tree. So you go down there and you sit in the shade. I'm like, okay. He'd back the truck down there, get a rake, and pull out a whole bed full of beans and vines. Yeah, that's right. I wasn't going nowhere. And it was like the reality hit you how you were just tricked. Because you had this hope that you were going to get to go have some fun, but then he pulls out all these beans. And you're sitting there, it's hot, the bugs are biting you, the sweat beads are coming around, you're smacking them, and you're breaking beans. Yeah, I don't know how, I just did like, I don't ever want a bean again. Don't ever want to have a bean, don't ever want to see a bean. But you kind of get over it. That's not going to sit there. But I had to break beans. So now if you bring me a big bunch of beans, I know how to break them. That's about it. I'm guessing I probably could eat them raw and I'd still get some nourishment. I'm sure there's a big pot of water or something that's involved in turning on the heat and throwing them in the pot and letting them cook, but I got no idea how long or anything else. There are some things I can do. I can fry eggs, I can fry bacon, I can do gravy, somewhat. I can do pancakes if I got Bisquick. If I don't have Bisquick, I'm hurting. I did it one time. I thought, went through Mom's recipe book, was going to surprise her, was going to make pancakes. I went through, oh, whole wheat pancakes, how nutritious. I made them. When I tasted the first one, I realized, no, I didn't make pancakes. I made what we call hoe cakes. It was cornbread. I didn't know the difference. I'm saying, you know, so I may be able to survive for a little while. There'll be people who will drop over dead before I do, but I may not be far behind them unless I can find me a friend who knows how to do these things. But people will walk around with their iPhones going, how do you do this? Where's the internet? And we're not going to have it. So how smart are we really? Smarter than our ancestors? Yeah, I can do all kinds of things with technology, but take the technology away and what can I do? How smart am I really? But yet we think we are. And the thing about being smart is that inevitably, the smarter we get, the stupider we become. Yeah, I said it. The smarter we get, the stupider we become. Man is very smart and has the ability to accomplish anything that we set our minds to. The problem is that we forget that we should be doing what God tells us to do instead of ignoring Him and trying to take care of ourselves versus trusting His Word. You see, we become so smart, I don't need God because I'm smart. I've got technology. I can do all kinds of amazing things. So why do I need God? I mean, really, let's think about it. You know, God, if you believe in a God, then really aren't you like kind of ignorant? Kind of like the natives that didn't know any better. They didn't know where fire came from. So when you rub two sticks together and you got fire, they go, oh, God. Because they were amazed. Because they were ignorant. That's kind of how we look at things. And people look at us that we believe in God. We believe certain things happen. They're like, how can you believe in that? You're ignorant. Look on the internet. Let me explain God away for you. Because science will show you God doesn't exist. My personal opinion is science shows us exactly that God exists. It's all about how you want to look at the evidence. Genesis chapter 11 verse 6. And see, I thought this was funny. Well, Jerry's gone, but that Jerry talked about this about how man thinks, how intelligent that we are with things that come along. So in Genesis chapter 11 verse 6, now you got to remember the flood has occurred and God has said, I will never do this again. Here is my bow in the sky that promises you I will never flood the earth again. God has made a promise. How many of you believe that when God makes a promise that God keeps His promise? I do. But do we show it? Because we are such intelligent people. Do we really rely on God, or do we try to rely on ourselves? Genesis chapter 11 verse 6. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. God acknowledged that people had the ability to achieve anything they set their mind to. Why? Because they were all one language. They were all communicating. So God came down and said, no, we're not going to do this. Is it because God was jealous? Was it because God was threatened that they could do anything that they set their mind to? Is God like, oh, we can't have that happening? No. The reason they were doing what they were doing and building the tower was to protect themselves from God. They were so intelligent and so smart that somebody said, hey, if we build a big tower, then God cannot destroy us again. Well, wait, but God said He wouldn't. Are you taking that chance? Come on. Just because He says it don't mean He will. Maybe He'll change His mind. Maybe He'll wipe us all out again. We're going to build a tower, take care of ourselves. That was their attitude. That's what they were doing. They were not believing what God had promised them and were trying to do something to protect themselves from God because they were having an issue. And so God said, you know what? I've had enough of this. And He confounded their languages. Different languages. The languages in the world come from that moment when God confounded everybody and changed all their languages. Now, what did I say just a little while ago? We are getting to the point to where we will be able with technology to understand everyone. And everyone will understand us. Think about that. Once again, man has become so smart that even though God has confounded the languages, we don't need to worry about that. We're going to undo it. And we will be able to accomplish anything we put our minds to. Who needs God? Do you see how fast we're getting back to that point? Because we're so intelligent. We're so smart, but yet we're so stupid because we actually believe we don't need God. And that we can do things without God. Exodus chapter 19, verse 5. Exodus chapter 19, verse 5. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. If you will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, which is what they agreed to do, we will keep your commands. You take care of us, and we'll take care of keeping all your commandments. That's the deal that was made. And man has failed it ever since, because we will not keep God's commands. God has promised to take care of us, to bless us, and He asks one thing: obey me. You see, I don't have to, because I am so intelligent. I've got so many brains, so much, that I don't need no God. I don't need to worry about that. I can do what I want to do because I ain't afraid of Him no more. He is nothing. I'm sure you remember the joke, because I know I've told it at least once. So I won't go through the whole thing because you know what I'm talking about. I'm sure you remember the joke about the scientists who decided they no longer needed God. That they could create life. Didn't need God because they could do it themselves. So scientist goes to God and tells him, say, hey, I can create life, don't need you anymore. You're a waste of time. You're an old myth. You're done. And God says, well, I'll tell you what, listen. Okay, you say you can create life. That you can create life just the way I did. Let's have a contest. And let's just see. You got it, because we don't need you, so I can do this. Scientist reaches down, grabs a handful of dirt, and God was like, whoa, 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 no. Go get your own dirt. You see, even if we think we can do things, there's still restrictions, because this is God's planet. This is God's creation. We are God's creation. Just because we think we can do things that God can do, we think we don't need Him anymore. And that's when we get in trouble. That's why I say the smarter we get, the stupider we get. Because we get so smart that we think we don't need God. And that is stupid to ever think that. Proverbs chapter 2. Proverbs chapter 2, beginning in verse 1. My son, if thou wilt receive my words, hide my commandments with thee, so that thou incline thy ear unto wisdom, and apply thy heart to understanding. Yea, if thou criest after knowledge, and liftest up thy voice for understanding. If thou seekest her as silver, and searchest for her as for hid treasures, then shalt thou understand the fear of the Lord, and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord giveth wisdom, out of His mouth cometh knowledge and understanding. The problem with mankind getting knowledge is that we all too often forget to ask God for the wisdom on how to use that knowledge. There's nothing wrong with knowledge per se. There's nothing wrong with learning. It's great to learn something. The problem comes in when we try to put it into practice without any wisdom. Because knowledge without the wisdom to use it is dangerous. That's what leads to us thinking that we don't need God. We got this stuff. We can take care of all this. Romans chapter 1 verse 20. Romans chapter 1 verse 20. You see, because with all this technology, I mean, right now I've got a microphone in my face that's going to an amp that's putting the sound out in the speaker so you all can hear me without me having to yell. There's a camera right here that with the push of one button, I begin live streaming service out on the internet for anybody to see. Anybody that can go to YouTube can watch this sermon right now, live, as we're doing it. And there's people who are watching it. I have one, of course, you know Ken Hartbarger, who can't resist to send me little messages that pop up while I'm talking. Thanks, Ken. But that's the technology. How awesome is that? To think that God's Word is going out on the internet right now. And it's saved on YouTube that people can come by later, which they do, and watch the sermon. Or watch parts of it or whatever. Most people don't have the attention span anymore to watch a whole sermon. But maybe they get something out of it. But it's going out to the internet. Just a push of a button. With all this technology, we look around us and we go, wow, is this not amazing? I mean, we can control the temperature of this room. For my taste right now, not very well because I'm a little hot. Some of you are probably a little cold. But we have the technology to do that. Would I have trouble living through a winter? No. Do it all the time. Because I have heat in my home. I don't have to worry about how cold it is outside. All I have to worry about is whether the power stays on. And if the power goes off, I'm grumpy. But I make it and I survive through winter. I don't have to worry about being outside and trying to figure out how to take limbs off of a tree and put them together to keep the snow off of me and clean the snow off the ground so I can stay warm and build a fire with no matches or anything to be able to survive the winter. And where am I going to get my food? I've got my shelter bit now, but now I've got to try to find food somewhere. So I've got to kill something or find some berries or vegetables or whatever and then prepare them. I've never cleaned an animal. I know there's a right way and a wrong way. If you do it the wrong way, the meat's no good anymore. I know that much. But exactly what you do, I have no idea, except take a knife and start hacking. And I'm guessing that's not the way to go at it. But if you're hungry enough, I'm pretty sure I'm going to hack anything I can to get over a fire to try to cook it. So how long would I survive? I don't know. So for all my technology, for everything that I think makes me smart, that makes me have the ability to do things that people from older generations can't do, to where I can have the attitude of, you know, man, I don't know how y'all survived back then. 3 channels on the TV, whoo, man, how could you even live? Romans chapter 1 verse 20 says, "For the invisible things of Him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even His eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. In all of our infinite silliness, we think we have achieved great things, but in comparison with God's achievements, our technological advancements are insignificant." When you look around at God's creation and you compare it to our technology doesn't even begin to touch God's creation. For example, I'm sure probably many of you in here have a fascination with hummingbirds, that think they're beautiful, like to watch them when they're around. Probably the best known characteristics of the hummingbird are its extremely rapid wing beat, 50 to 80 beats per second. Now, its amazing ability to maneuver. It can hover, it can fly backwards and sideways, it can fly at speeds of more than 55 miles per hour. In a courtship dive, it can reach 60 miles per hour, swooping down and back up again in a U-shaped dive. All this work, of course, uses an enormous amount of energy. An article in the Vancouver Sun, May 3rd, 1991, noted that to keep up their blistering lifestyle, hummingbirds of both sexes burn up huge amounts of calories, the equivalent for humans of 1,300 hamburgers a day, washed down with just shy of 16 gallons of water, used mainly for cooling purposes. How great is that this little teeny bird can do what it does, and that as far as functioning, trying to function like a human does, if we tried it, 1,300 hamburgers a day. Now, I thought I was a hefty eater, but I ain't going to come close to that. And 16 gallons of water just to cool itself because of the energy it's using to stay in motion. Using all that energy, the hummingbird needs an extremely efficient fuel. It obtains the fuel in the form of nectar from flowers. God has equipped the hummingbird with a needle-like bill which penetrates deep into flowers to extract nectar. If the corolla of the flower is too long, the bill can pierce it at the base to gain access. This little bird flies up and sticks its bill into the flower and sucks up nectar. That's equivalent to 1,300 hamburgers and 16 gallons of water. And yet people want to try to tell us that it all evolved. You have to have the hummingbird that evolves. You have to have the flower that evolves with the nectar that will feed the hummingbird. I guess we go back to the same thing. Which came first, the flower or the hummingbird? But that's what they want us to believe, that these creatures, that they evolved from nothing. The hummingbird is also equipped with a long, specially designed tongue, which is curled up at the edges to form two troughs, which look like a number 3 on its back, to hold the nectar. The long tongue curls up and retracts to the back of the head. The bird takes 13 licks per second. What would that do to a Tootsie Pop? When the tongue retracts into the mouth, the nectar is squeezed out into the throat. Think about that. God created this creature, and it works perfect. He created the food for it. He created its body to be able to specifically use the food that it would need for its fuel. And it's beautiful. Let's not forget that. It is beautiful, and it sits there, and it will hover, and it will move, and it fascinates us. Your Father, your Creator, has created that bird so that you can enjoy it. Thank goodness we have so much intelligence that we have 436 channels on our TV. That we can stay in our homes and we can watch those TVs and we can watch those channels, and guess what? We can even see the hummingbird up close because somebody has videoed it and put it on our TV for us. I have yet to ever see anything, even with all of our high definition, the 4K TVs that are coming out now. I mean, oh, the pictures are so realistic, but none of them compare to the real thing. Since we're talking about seeing, let's just talk for a moment about the eye. The human eye possesses 130 million light-sensitive rods and cones that convert light into chemical impulses. These signals travel at a rate of 1 billion per second to the brain. Incredible as the eye is, consider that we have not one, but 2 of them. This matched pair, coupled with an interpretive center in the brain, allows us to determine distances to objects we see. Our eyes also have the ability to focus automatically by elongating or compressing themselves. They are also inset beneath a bony brow that, along with automatic shutters in the form of eyelids, provide protection for these intricate and delicate organs. Even the greatest of man's achievements pales in comparison to God's creation. Think about what I just read talking about your eyes. Not only do you have one eye that does this, you have 2 that does this. Yeah, sure, they get old and things aren't always as focused as they should be, but hey, God gave us the intelligence to what? Build lenses that we can correct it and see in, so we can see things clearly. But even in that, it's not really as clear as the natural eye. Because usually if you wear glasses, you got a little something on there, you got to clean them and stuff. It's still not the same as looking with your own naked eyes onto God's creation. How many people think about, when they're looking at something, the miracle that's occurring in what you're seeing? The way you're seeing me right now. The way you're seeing the back of your eyelids if you're snoozing, but just what you're seeing. This cannot be duplicated. I'm going out on the internet, but what's going on the internet is not what you're seeing here, because that camera, for all its sophistication, cannot copy God's creation of eyes. We can get close. We can make it look good, but it is not the same as God's creation. That technology right there is nothing compared to what God has put here. And He gave us two. And yet, we are supposed to believe in all of our infinite knowledge that these evolved from nothing. Why? Well, because in nature, you know, you might lose one eye and you'd have to have another, so you evolved with two, so you'd have a spare. Well, okay, wait. Okay, I got two ears, so okay. I only got one nose, though. What happens if it gets cut off or something? Wouldn't I need another one to be able to sniff and smell? And what about my mouth? What if it gets closed up and there's something I can't use it to eat anymore? Shouldn't I have another one over here that I can still feed? I mean, if we want to go that route, that we're creating duplicates and backups. I've never done a whole lot with evolution because it just never made any sense to me at all. And it's like, okay, you know, you want to talk about following some kind of fake religion or having some kind of fake God. Evolution has that, not my whole life. Because the things they try to say happened, there's no way it happened without an intelligent creator. But I recently heard an argument that I'll pass on to you. You may have already heard it. But I'm like, once I had this, I'm like, there you go. The most staunch evolutionists will go back and they will talk about the Big Bang. Everything was created from. Everything was created from this one particle. We had the Big Bang. This is the question. Where did the particle come from? Everything came from something according to evolution. Where did the particle come from that exploded and created everything? They don't have an answer for that. You will end a conversation real quick because there is no answer to the where did the particle come from. Everything came from something and was evolved from. Where did the particle come from? And I pondered on that and I was like, wow, that's right. How do you answer that? If you have that belief that everything came from something and it just blew up and everything came from that creation from that without any kind of intelligent design, which the whole logic of that just blows the mind. But let's say you're right. Let's go all the way back and say, okay, you've got me on everything else that doesn't make any sense, okay, I'm going to go along with. But we get back to that Big Bang. Where did your particle come from that started everything? Oops. They don't have an answer. I'm sure they'll come up with some kind of argument because that's what humans do, because we are so smart. We can come up with arguments about anything. But how do you address that if that's your belief? Now, I know you people don't believe that, so we don't have to worry about that. You understand how stupid it is to think that we evolved from nothing, that everything out there evolved from nothing and came forth as what we are today. I mean, let's face it. Why do you not have a tail? Would it not be cool to be swinging from tree to tree to tree? Make it a lot easier about picking the fruit and stuff out of the tree if you had a tail. But we don't have one. But because evolution says, no, that's a step up. You don't need that. I don't know. I think it's a step down if I don't have a tail. That's me. Proverbs chapter 3. Proverbs chapter 3. Proverbs chapter 3, beginning verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not unto your own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord, and depart from evil. Then my last scripture, Isaiah chapter 47, verse 10. Isaiah chapter 47 and verse 10. For thou hast trusted in thy wickedness, thou hast said, none seeth me. Thy wisdom and thy knowledge, it hath perverted thee. And thou hast said in thy heart, I am, and none else beside me. When we look at our accomplishments, and we try to think we are something, when we try to say, hey, you know, God's okay and all, but I mean, I am intelligent. I've gone to college, I've got a degree, I can manipulate electronics, I can do things with technology. I mean, come on. I'm printing my own food now. What do I need God for? And you can argue and argue and argue. But if somebody does not have faith and they don't believe in God, you can never ever prove anything to them because they are so intelligent that they're stupid. Technological advances are wonderful. They make our lives easier. The danger in being too amazed is that we may sometimes forget that God's technological advantages are greater than anything mankind can ever come up with. And all that we do is by the grace of God, and without Him we cannot accomplish anything, especially anything amazing. Brethren, let us be wise. Always remember God in our smartness and not be stupider.
If you would, take your helmets, please. Stand. Turn to page 48. Sweet Hour Prayer. For this song, we'll ask Mr. Lonnie Hurst to come forward with the closing prayer.
Our Holy Heavenly Father, we thank you for this message that we heard, and thank you that you are the supreme technologist, the master of all human endeavors. Even though man thinks he owns it and controls it all, he is but a ant compared to you. And just ask that we would trust in your wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and revelation, and that we would not trust in all this worldly things, but trust in you, and ask that you would be with the people that are sick and the brethren that are having troubles and sickness. Just help them and heal them, and ask that you would bless the food that you have provided and for our nourishment and health, and ask that you would be with us through this coming week and on our trips home, and just protect us and watch over us always. And we thank you for all you do for us, and ask it in Jesus Christ's perfect and holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Forgot I done had beat there. Yeah. 3-8 out. I don't even remember that one no more. I think it's a half of a 3-4.
Yeah.